Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sport for today's official early preview of the Sharks versus the British and Irish Lions. Kickoff is on a Wednesday at 7 o'clock at Ellis Park. So technically the Sharks, whilst being the home side, are not actually playing at home, and they're playing at altitude, which might count against it because they're not playing in sort of conditions which they're used to. And I think that what will be quite interesting is that we saw the Sigma Lions being run off their feet at their home ground at altitude where they play their rugby, and now this is going to be a Shark side who live at sea level and play most of the rugby at sea level. Now they're going to have to try and compete against the side which, fitness-wise, outdid a side based at altitude. So I think it should be a very, very difficult task for the Sharks. The British and Irish Lions is an all-new starting 15. A couple of players on the bench that played this weekend, but a new captain and some new combination. It should be quite an exciting game. And I think for the Sharks, they've got their captain back in Pepsi Buthelezi, but I think there's a couple of areas for me which sort of are a bit of a red flag in terms of the Sharks. I think people were sort of quick to sort of write off the Sigma Lions and saying, and even Warren Gatland says, I think it was taken out of context though. Warren Gatland saying that he hopes he faces tougher challenges, but I think, and then he literally said in the next sentence, but I understand the difficulty of trying to field a side with no Springboks, with all the players have gone overseas, and that's the thing, because if it was the Lions side of 2-3 years ago that made the Super Rugby final, I think it would have been a very, very good game, but it wasn't. There wasn't this. I think there wasn't a single player in that starting lineup. I think maybe just Rue Andrea, who's actually even part of the squad of what the Lions were doing 2-3 years ago. So, just like the Sharks, it's what the Sharks got a very good starting lineup, but they've lost, pretty much 10 players to the Springboks, and a couple of injuries as well. So I think there's a couple of areas which for me are a bit of a sort of red flag for the Sharks. Before we look at the two teams announced, please do smash like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be live for this game. We'll be live for all the British and Irish Lions series. If you want to know how to watch the British and Irish Lions series, check the description over there. We've got a step-by-step guide. ExpressVPN is your number one friend. Peacock Sports is the cheapest alternative. And we've also did a video on that if you want to know more information. So you can check out our channel and see how to watch the games wherever you are in the world. But in terms of the teams for this weekend, we'll start with the home side, which is the Sharks. And the first name you'll see that is back is number 8, Pepsi Buthelezi. The 22-year-old Franco Horn was the captain against the Lions on the weekend, and now 22-year-old Pepsi Buthelezi, somebody else who I think is probably destined for a Springbok call-up, is back in the line. I mean, it's so exciting for South Africans that you could see, people like Albert Lowe, Bench Tuka, Pepsi Buthelezi, even Risk, all sort of, mounting a Springbok charge in the coming months and years, But if you're looking at the Shark side, at the front, we've got Kwesi Mona, Fesenbata, and Kuta Mkuno at the front row. I think that's the biggest sort of area of concern. I think that if you look at the Lions on the weekend, I personally think it was a better Lions front row. I think both front rows are probably better than that front row. I think that's a front row that's very inexperienced. Kwesi Mona and Kuta Mkuno have not had a lot of game time. I think Fesenbata is a fantastic player. I think he's been part of the Bok alignment camp. But I think that front row in the Sharks, I think that's an area where the Lions will target, especially if you look at the Lions front row, which is starting this week on Wednesdays. The Lions front row that came off the bench and caused the Sigma Lions starting front row, which is a much better front row than that, a lot of problems. But the two locks are very solid, and Ruben van Heerden and Hiron Andrews, and it's a decent loose trio of James Venter, Temulani Bolly, and Pepsi Buthelezi. I think Temulani Bolly is going to be very important because we saw how the British and Irish Lions tried to bully the Sigma Lions, with Courtney Laws and some of the big ball carriers. And then I've got, you've got Curry this week, as well as Josh Navidi is a very good ball carrier. So there's some very, very good players. Something like Sam Simmons is quite explosive. But in the backline for the Sharks, Hendrickson will be partnered with Curran Bosch. Tucker Abrahams, who set up a phenomenal try against the Western Province, gets the nod at 11. Werner Koch on the other wing, which I think is a big waste. And Marius Lowe and Jeremy Ward are the two centres. Again, I think that's probably an area which the British and Irish Lions will try and target. I don't think that, Marius Lowe and Jeremy Ward, look, they're pretty solid defensively, and they will have to be very solid defensively. But I think on the attack, they're probably a little bit one-dimensional. But I think the biggest threat to the British and Irish Lions is going to be Monty Liebach. I think he's someone who can create something out of nothing. He's a very exciting player. He sort of manages to find space. And I think if he has a good game, that's probably the best chance of the Sharks doing something special on Wednesday. On the bench, Ken van Vuren, Ntutuko Mkuno, rising star there, Vian Herbst, JJ van der Mesh, Reniel Hugo, and Dylan Richardson. They got up with a 6-2 split, trying to get a bit of a bomb squad effect, which I think is a very good idea. To be able to bring Van der Mesh and Reniel Hugo on, it's a bit of grunt, as well as Richardson, who's very good on the ball, very nice defensively. And then you've got Grant Williams and Anthony Folman, who will inject a lot of pace into that 15. So it's not a bad Shark side by any means, and I think Pepsi Buthelezi being back is a very good sign, because I think that, if it was like Impilo Gomedi, who's barely played any sort of rugby recently, would have been a major area of concern. On the contrary, Pepsi Buthelezi walks into the side and looks like one of the best players in that Sharks 15. For the British and Irish Lions, as I said, it's a completely new starting 15, and Ian Henderson will captain the men in red this week. If you look at that front row, it's Marco Vunipola, Luke Cowan-Dickey, and Xander Ferguson. The front row, the second row, Ian Henderson is partnered by British and Irish Lions newbie Adam Beard, who was not supposed to be part of the squad initially. He'll get a start, as will Josh Navidi. And I think, you can quote me on this, I think Josh Navidi could force some way into that test side. He was sensational in the Six Nations. He was probably one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player of the Six Nations. Him and Hamish Watson, I thought, were absolutely terrific. And I think that I was quite surprised he was left out of the British and Irish Lions to begin with. And I think that, you've got Tadhg Beirne coming off the bench. You had a very interesting game by Courtney Laws, but I think Josh Navidi is a very, very good player. And I think that he could, if he pitched up on Wednesday, I think that he could create quite a nice selection here for Warren Gatland. Equally so could Ben Curry. Tom Curry. So we know how good he is. We've seen him for England. He's a monstrous performer. And it's him versus Hamish Watson for that number 7 jersey. And that's going to be a fantastic battle to see which one can win. And then a very, very exciting ball carrier in Sam Simmons at number 8. He came on and I thought looked very, very bright against the Lions. Hasn't had a lot of chances for England, but he's a very good ball carrier. He scored a lot of tries for in the Premiership. He's an explosive ball carrier, very quick, sort of good step. He's a very, very good player. And then if you look at the back line, Gareth Davies and Dan Biggar and the Welsh partnership. So it's interesting, as I said, once again, Warren Gatland going with partnerships, partnering Ali Price with Finn Russell. And then having Stuart Hogg at the back. Now we're looking at this weekend, and we've got Gareth Davies with Dan Biggar with Liam Williams at the back. So a lot of partnerships carrying on. Duran van der Merwe and Anthony Watson are the 2 wings. Duran van der Merwe playing up against the Sharks his first time back in the country, playing against representing for the British and Irish Lions. It should be quite an interesting game there. And then the centre pairing of Bundy Aki and Elliot Daly. Elliot Daly obviously got a massive boot. Looked very, very bright when he came on for the Lions. And then Bundy Aki, he's just very direct. And I think that he'll probably look at Curran Bosch and say, that's where I'm going. I'm going to hit that Curran Bosch line every single time. We know that there's been always been doubts a little bit about Curran Bosch's ability to defend and whether it's good enough. And I think that, Bundy Aki will be sitting there saying, right, well, if that's the case, that's where we're going to hit. Off the bench, Ken Owens, Rory Sutherland, and Tadhg Furlong will be the replacement front row. Then we've got Tadhg Beirne, Jack Conan as the replacement. It's good to see Jack Conan back after a bit of a hamstring issue, which forced him off early against Japan, but looks like that's all sorted. And then the tour captain, Conor Murray, will come off the bench, as will Stuart Hogg and Chris Harris. To be able to bring on Stuart Hogg, Chris Harris, and Conor Murray is a phenomenal position to be in. And I think that they're going to inject a lot of attacking nature towards that final. Conor Murray is a very good player for sort of seeing the ball, seeing the game. Obviously, got a very good tactical kicking game, but I don't think that's sort of the way of the Lions at the moment in these first games. I think, maybe against the Bulls, they'll probably start going to a bit more of a cautious game plan against the SAA. But I think once again, against the Sharks, they'll be pretty free-flowing, and they'll try to run the Sharks off their feet. It should be a very, very interesting game. I think the Sharks, once again, like the single Lions, are going to have to front up front if they want to do anything. But it's a very, very powerful British and Irish Lions front row. As I said, Vunipola, Cowan-Dickey, and Ferguson came on off the weekend and started dominating. I think, Adam Beard and Josh Navidi, how often do we see players come into the touring squad that weren't supposed to be there and go on to put in really, really big performances and sort of make a huge difference and put their hand up. So I'm very keen to see how they go. It should be a very interesting game. I think if the Sharks get within 30, much like I said with the Lions, it would be a good performance from them, because I think that this British and Irish Lions side looks very, very good. Unfortunately, I think our Unions are also a little bit guilty. I just think it's not their fault of their own, but they haven't been exposed to a lot of different type of rugby and a lot of different type of opposition over the past 9 months. I think if this tour would be a year's time after a full season of United Rugby Championship, where they can get players in and they can sort of play more rugby and play different type of rugby, I think it would be much more competitive. But as a result of COVID-19, I think our franchises are a little bit sort of below where they would probably like to be. I think they're definitely a lot better than they were 9 months ago, but maybe still not quite at the level that we'd like them to be. And I don't think there's any reason to panic about that. It's just literally a result of the circumstance we find ourselves in, which is that we haven't managed to play a lot of rugby and different type of rugby over the last sort of 9 months. Let me know what you think is going to happen in the game down in the comments below. Smash like on it. Do subscribe to the channel. We're doing a fan preview of this tomorrow night with Lakanyo Changweni. We're joining him on the channel, so make sure you can come and hang out then. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Stephen, and I'll chat to you guys soon.